Oh, it's you! Hello! Welcome to Heterodox Paradox, where we take a look at the wacky things quasi-Christian preachers like to say, and we ask the question, why do you listen to these people? Today's featured chewy food product is, 3-month-old saltwater taffy. All the fun of a visit to the county fair, only without the animals and without the carnival rides and without the free swag from the real estate agents. And why am I eating this again? The taste of future dental work. Our featured wacky preacher today is the one and only Arnold Murray.
If you are unfamiliar with Arnold Murray, think back to that time when you woke up in the wee morning hours with a stomach flu. You couldn't go back to sleep, so you flicked on the tube and you saw an aging preacher sitting at his desk teaching something out of the Bible, with the U.S. flag featured prominently behind him. That was Arnold Murray.
That was Arnold Murray?
Yeah, that guy. That was Arnold Murray. Now, in your bellyache-induced stupor, he may not have seemed all that bad. A little gruff, a little rough around the edges, but not too bad. But let's say you didn't kick that stomach flu as fast as you wanted, and you saw him again the next night. Things are moving along pretty well. He tells you some fine-sounding horse sense. He tells you to look up something in Strong's Concordance. Then, out of nowhere, he rocks your world.
Eve had sex with the devil? So did Adam? What's his first Earth age? The Kenites? What is all this? Here's the deal. To really understand Dr. Murray, you just have to experience him for yourself. But let me give you the skinny. He goes by Dr. Arnold Murray, even though no one seems to know where he got his doctorate from. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you have to have a doctorate to be a good Bible teacher. But you know, sometimes it just pays to check out someone's credentials before you get all excited about what they're teaching.
Hey, Sal, I told you not to put that in. No, I told you not to put it in. Hey, look, man, I don't care if she reminds you of your prom date. I told you to take it, not to put it in. Now take it out. No, take it out. No, look, hey, Sal, look, just click this and just take.
So anyway, Arnold Murray is the pastor of a church called Shepherd's Chapel coming out of Gravette, Arkansas. I'll post a link in the information portion underneath here that you can click on to find their website where you can read their statement of faith and some videos. Anyway, here's some things Arnold Murray teaches. First off, he presents himself as a scholar of the biblical languages, even though most of what he does is just look up things from Strong's and come up with a lot of weird associations from what he finds. In terms of what he teaches, for one thing, he teaches that Adam and Eve had sexual relations with the devil, and that Cain was actually the son of Eve and the devil, and that Cain's children went on to become a group of people called the Kenites, and that these Kenites were responsible for, really, it seems like most of the awful things that happen in the Bible, and this group of people are still active today. Murray also teaches that we existed, or at least the elect, which he understands in kind of an interesting way, that the elect existed in a first earth age, and that Satan rebelled at the end of this first earth age. He teaches in a way that we had a role to play in our own creation. He says that the hour in Genesis 1, when it says, let us create man in our image, that the hour is God and us. So basically you're created in your own image. Well, I've been wanting to do a video about Arnold Murray for some time now, and I had picked one particular lesson I found of his on YouTube coming from Ezekiel 1, where he teaches that the wheels in Ezekiel 1 are, you guessed it, flying saucers.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. Washington, London, Paris, Moscow are key targets.
Now, as I was watching this video, things were trucking along pretty well. He was making some really odd interpretations and saying some really wacky things. I was thinking,
this stuff is so weird!
About 12 minutes into this video, Murray gave his particular spin on the meaning of the 4 faces on the angelic beings associated with Ezekiel's wheels. In the course of talking about how one of these faces stood for the tribe of Judah, he said this, quote, "This is one of the reasons that I could translate the Bat Creek stone so easily."
Bat Creek stone? What's a Bat Creek stone?
I stopped what I was doing and Googled Bat Creek stone. Here is the Bat Creek stone. Apparently it was found in a burial mound in Tennessee back in 1889. I say found with air quotes because there are some that think it was not found so much as it was stuck there by an unscrupulous field archaeologist looking to make a name for himself.
Now look, I'm not really here to comment on whether or not the Bat Creek stone is authentic, who wrote it or where it came from. That's all a little bit outside of my zone of knowing stuff. But suffice to say, some people look at the Bat Creek stone and say,
you know, those etchings on that stone, they look a little like Paleo-Hebrew. Everybody else looks at it and says it looks a lot like something else.
I'll give you one guess what Arnold Murray thinks it's written in. I bet you're thinking he thinks it's written in Paleo-Hebrew, aren't you? I bet you're thinking he's just wacky enough to think it's written in Paleo-Hebrew, right? Right? Well, guess what? You're wrong! He doesn't say it's Paleo-Hebrew. He says it's Phalo-Hebrew. What's Phalo-Hebrew, you ask? I have no idea. Look, I don't know everything. Maybe there is something called Phalo-Hebrew. I know I've never heard of it before. I know I can't seem to find any journal articles or books about it. I know I haven't heard anything about it outside of Murray and his followers. Maybe it just is an old-fashioned term for something right under my nose. Or maybe Murray made it up. I really don't know. But if any of you out there do know what Phalo-Hebrew is, post a comment on this web zone. Better yet, if you can present the title of a printed resource that talks about Phalo-Hebrew, I might just send you a 3-month-old piece of saltwater taffy.
Anyway, I did a little more poking around, and apparently sometime around the totally awesome late 80s, Murray produced a totally awesome film about the Bat Creek stone. A YouTube user called Sons of Oil has posted it. I have a link to the video in the description down below. Now, this film basically comes at you in 3 parts. In the first part, Murray walks you through the site where the stone was found. The second part of the video has Murray reading through parts of a report regarding the authenticity of the stone. In the third part, Murray walks you through his translation of what he finds etched on the stone.
So let's dig in, shall we? Hit it, Sal! I said hit it, Sal!
Oh, there it goes. Now, right off the bat, someone has attached a title card to the front of the video stating that this video serves to correct a particular detractor of Murray's who had issued a challenge to Murray to translate a message written in the biblical languages. I assume the person who attached this title card was Sons of Oil, but I don't really know for sure. Anyway, the title card says that this detractor, this doubter, should watch and learn.
So we're supposed to look at this video and learn from it of Arnold Murray's linguistic skills. Here's the problem with that. The lesson that we're likely to learn from this video probably isn't the lesson that either Arnold Murray or Sons of Oil would like us to learn.
Now, I know I just said that I'm only really interested in the third part of the video, but Murray does say something in the first portion when he's on location at the mounds where the stone was found that is very pertinent to his translation work. He is talking about what is written on the stone, and he says this, quote, "For under the head of this one individual we read those words, May Yahweh, or may Yah, have mercy."
Now, he doesn't just offer this rendering of what's on the stone once. He does this several times in this first portion of the video. So remember, when Murray was standing in Tennessee, he said that what the words on the stone said were, "May Yah have mercy." Tuck that away in your brains. It'll come up again later.
Okay, so on to his translation process. Now, the first thing Murray does is run down the characters on the stone and suggest what Hebrew letters they are. Now, there are a few problems here. Take the first letter, for instance. It does look like the letter Resh in Paleo-Hebrew characters, if it is turned backwards. Also, the letter he says is a majuscular Vav. Looks like no example of a Paleo-Hebrew Vav that I've ever seen. Also, Murray mispronounces most of the names of the letters, most particularly Lamed, which he pronounces lamed, as in, like, the horse was lamed.
Look, I don't know why someone would mispronounce the name of a letter in the Hebrew alphabet like that, unless he had only ever seen the name of the letter in print and had never heard it being used, which means he probably never took a class in Hebrew, which means he has no formal training in Hebrew, which means we probably should pay no attention to his translation of anything in Hebrew. So, there are some problems with the letters on the stone, and there are also some early indications that Arnold Murray doesn't really know what he's talking about. But if we stop the video right there, it would be no fun. So I'm prepared to throw Arnold Murray a bone. And here's the first bone I'll throw Arnold Murray. Here it is. That the letters are what Arnold Murray says they are. Now, understand, I'm not telling you that yes, what's on the stone is Hebrew. I'm not telling you yes, Arnold Murray got it right. I'm just making a concession. See, if we don't make that concession, we can't move any further in the video and analyze Arnold Murray's fascinating translation work. So, here's the bone we'll throw Arnold Murray, that the letters are what he says they are. And once we make that concession, we can jump right into his translation work.
Just about the first thing he does is talk about the character on the stone that appears to be some kind of subscript. He claims that this is a Masoretic numeric notation. In talking about this, he explains some things about the Masorah to the viewer. He reads from his study Bible of choice, the Companion Bible. He reads this as a definition of the Masorah. Quote, "It records the number of times the several letters occur in the various books of the Bible, the number of words, and the middle word, the number of verses in the middle verse, the number of expressions and combinations of words. All this for the set purpose of safeguarding the sacred text and preventing the loss or misplacement of a single letter or word." Unquote.
So Murray claims that Masoretic numeric notes were meant to ensure that nothing went missing from the text. Now, to flesh that out a little bit more than Murray does, the Masoretes, basically part of what they did was they took all the numerical data for the various books of the Bible, and when they finished a copy of a book of the Bible, say Amos for instance, they would tabulate all this numeric information, the kind of information Murray talks about. They tabulate it all up and then compare it to the established information for that book of the Bible. Now, if the counting that they got for their copy was different from the established numeric facts for the book, then something went wrong in the copy process. Something was added or something was left out. So the point here is that Murray admits that what is being used here is a Masoretic Masoretic numerical notation, and that these were used to make sure nothing was left out of the text. Now, in particular, Murray says this subscripted character is the letter Vav, and that it means that there should be 6 words in the phrase on the stone.
Aside from the subscript, Murray identifies these letters read from right to left. Resh, Kov, then a mark he calls a caret, but it looks like some manner of divider of some kind. Then Lamed, Yod, Hey, Vav, Dalet. Later in the video, he also mentions that there is a mem at the end of the inscription too, but he says he only mentions it for the, quote, deeper scholar, unquote, and that it does not impact the translation, so I don't really know why he brings it up at all. Furthermore, I'm not sure how anyone can be sure what that little wedge-shaped mark at the far left of the stone is anyway. There's not enough there to really identify a letter, but oh well. Okay, so once that is established, he goes into his translation work. Murray does something very strange as he begins his translation. He takes the first letter he finds, which he says is Resh, and directs the viewer's attention to a particular word in Strong's Concordance, Hebrew word 690. Then he says of that word in Strong's, quote, "You will find Resh, as it is used here," meaning on the stone, "with 2 vowels, which you are allowed to do, A and A. We have lion," unquote. He then displays the entry he's referring to on the screen, which I've offered here as a still shot. Oh, where to start? Where to start? Well, first off, he has done something very strange and passes it off like it's nothing. He has taken one letter, the Resh, and then attaches 2 other letters to it that are not present in the stone to create a word. Then he says, "You're allowed to do that."
You are not allowed to do that. With very few exceptions, if you add or drop a consonant from a word in Hebrew, you are changing the meaning somehow. Let me give you an example.
Let's take this Hebrew word, avad. Now this word is the base form of a verb. It means he perished. Now let's drop the first letter, the aleph, which is the same letter Murray is adding 2 of to this first word of his, except he calls it an A, perhaps for the sake of his audience. Well, let's take that first aleph off. Let's take that aleph off. And what do you have? Well, now you have the word bod, which is a noun meaning linen. Yes, you have an entirely different word. Now, just for fun, let's add an aleph to the end of this. What do we have then? We have bada, which means he devised. Again, a completely different word. You cannot just add alephs willy-nilly to Hebrew words.
But let's pretend we could. Let's pretend it didn't matter. Murray's saying that the scribe etched the letter resh, and that he knew the reader would know that meant actually aleph, resh, aleph, the word ara. But why would the reader assume that? I mean, why couldn't the reader assume that the resh stood for the word or, which is the Hebrew word for light? I mean, that's just one aleph you're adding there. Why couldn't the reader understood it meant ra, which is the Hebrew word for evil or misfortune? I mean, that's just one ayin you're adding. Why couldn't the reader understood it stood for any Hebrew word involving the letter resh, for that matter? Now, Murray might have some kind of argument if he was saying that the letter resh was standing for the word resh, you know, kind of like what the kids do in the text messaging, where they type the letter R, but they mean the word R. I mean, that would almost kind of make sense, but that's not what Murray's claiming, because the letter resh takes its name from this Hebrew word, which is resh, or rosh, and it means head. But that's not what Murray says it is. Murray says that it's the letter resh, and it's standing for the word ara, which he says means lion. But does it really mean lion? Let's take a look at the Strong's entry Murray presents.
Okay, so Murray is claiming that this one letter, this resh, actually stands for this particular word, ara, Strong 690. Now, take a good look at the entry Murray is displaying. It gives the Strong's number for the word. It shows the word in Hebrew characters. Then it gives a phonetic pronunciation of the word. Then it says this word is probably derived from or used for another word coded 738. Incidentally, Strong's word number 738 is ari. Then the entry says that this word ari, the word that Murray's word probably derived from, that word means lion. Then the entry provides the meaning of the actual word in question, the actual meaning of the word Strong 690, ara. What is the meaning? Well, ara. What's ara, you ask? Well, the entry says what it is. It's the name of an Israelite. So the word Murray says the resh is standing for is this word, ara. And it is a proper noun. It is the name of a particular Israelite. So, how does Murray understand his own resource? Well, first off, he manages to mispronounce the word even though he's looking right at a phonetic spelling of it. Second, he completely dismisses what his own resource says about the word's etymology. His resource says it is probably coming from or being used for the word ari. Murray reads this and dismisses it, saying that it is, quote, no doubt, unquote, from ari. Furthermore, Murray misreads his own resource when he says that the word means lion. This word does not mean lion. This is not what his own resource says. His own resource says it is just the name of a particular Israelite, and that the name is probably derived from another word, which does mean lion.
Now, let me tell you what Arnold Murray does not. Guess how many times that particular Hebrew word, Strong's 690, guess how many times that Hebrew word appears in the Hebrew Bible? Once. Only once. Here, let me show you. This is a page from a particular Hebrew lexicon for Biblical Hebrew called Brown Driver Briggs. I would call this the Honda Accord of Hebrew lexicons. It isn't necessarily the Rolls-Royce. It isn't super expensive. It's not a big multi-volume lexicon, but it is very reliable. and reasonably priced, and lots of people use it, just like an accord. This is the lexicon you would probably be asked to buy if you were taking a class in Biblical Hebrew. Well, anyway, here is the entry for the word that Murray says is meant by the letter resh on the stone. Now, see this little mark right here? It looks like a little cross kind of symbol. This mark signifies that this entry lists all the occurrences of this particular word in the Hebrew Bible. Now, if you scan through this entry a little bit, how many references do you find? Oh, there it is. It's the only one. 1 Chronicles 7:38. Now, what else does this entry mean? Well, let's see here. Or what does it say? It says we're dealing with the word ara in Hebrew letters. Got noun, proper, masculine. Says meaning unknown, but this particular person conjectures that it may be equal to ari, which is lion. Okay, so it's a conjecture that it might be a derivative or equal to this word, which means lion. Okay, but then it gives the proper definition of this term, the actual meaning of this term, as a descendant of Asher. Then it gives the reference, the one and only reference where this particular word is found. And also here, if you're wondering what this is, if you haven't figured it out already, that's the number 690, which means Strong's number 690. So yes, this is the actual term that Murray is talking about. So this word is only used in the Hebrew Bible once. And here's the passage it appears in. We're looking at 1 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 38. It says, the sons of Jether, Jephunneh, Pispa, and Ara. So there you go. It's a man's name, Ara. Is it used of a lion? No, it's only used once, and it's used of a man, because it's a man's name. The only reason Murray has to say it means lion is a misreading of his own resource, Strong's Concordance. It would be kind of like saying, well, take my name, Adam, which probably derives from the Hebrew word for dirt. Now, it'd be like teaching people that every time you saw the name Adam anywhere, you were to understand it actually meant dirt. So anyway, the particular word that Murray references only shows up in the Hebrew Bible once. But words built of the same three consonants he's referring to, Aleph, Resh, Aleph, show up 19 times in the Hebrew Bible. You see, originally in written Hebrew, there were no written vowels. And so the vowel sounds associated with the consonants in a word were basically understood from the arrangement of the consonants or from the context the word is used in. But you see, you could take words that had the same consonants and use different vowel sounds in the word to create new words. This is precisely the reason why the Masoretes came up with a system of vowel points, so that they could ensure that the text was being read the same way from synagogue to synagogue. So anyway, the particular word that Murray references only shows up in the Hebrew Bible once. But words built of the same three consonants he's referring to, Aleph, Resh, Aleph, show up 19 times in the Hebrew Bible. But 18 of those 19 times, it is a conjugation of the Hebrew verb, meaning to see. It is the imperfect first person singular conjugation of the verb to see. So by itself, it would just mean, I will see. The only time that those three letters together make a word, and it doesn't mean I will see, or at least form the conjugation meaning I will see, is the one time it shows up as the name Ara, which we've already talked about. So even if Murray is right about this throwing in alephs and having a reader read the letter resh and understand it means aleph, resh, aleph, the reader would be far more likely to understand those three letters to mean I will see. In short, Murray's reading of just this first word is so troubled it's almost beyond belief. The only reason I can think of why he treats the letter resh this way is if, one, he has no clue how Hebrew actually works, and two, he's just finding a letter and then thumbing through Strong's Concordance till he finds the first word involving that letter, and it happened to be ara. Oh, but Murray's not done yet. Far from it.
He moves on to the next two letters in the line, which he says are Kof and Lamed. He says these two letters spell the Hebrew word for voice. He says it cannot be translated any other way. Well, he is right that these two letters can be an alternate form of the word kol, which does mean voice or sound. But he is wrong when he says it cannot be translated as anything else. Actually, the letters Kof and Lamed together as a word can also mean light, as in lightweight or swift. If they are associated with different vowel sounds, that is. Now, this little mistake is not so flagrant as what he did a moment ago with his resh, but still, it is inaccurate. From there, Murray turns back to Strong's to discuss the meaning of the word kol. Here's the actual Strong's entry on the screen. Now, what Murray does with this entry is he basically blends all the various uses and meanings of this word together until he kind of mentally smooshes them until he arrives at this meaning of the word. Quote, certainly, kol, or quote, is not a gentle voice, but a fiery, loud voice, unquote.
It seems that he thinks the word kol always means a loud, fiery voice, when it does not always mean a loud, fiery voice. Look up 1 Kings 19, when Elijah's on the mountain and he hears the still, small voice. The same Hebrew word is used there for the still, small voice. So clearly, in that case, it's not a loud, fiery voice.
As Murray moves on, he says the next two letters form the word Yah, which is a shortened form of the covenant name for the Lord. Fair enough. Except that I'm pretty sure that what he has written on the board there is a chet, not a hey. And a chet would be the wrong letter here, but the video quality isn't the greatest, so I could be wrong there. So, Murray moves on to the last two full letters on the stone. Before he really goes into what these two letters spell, though, he goes ahead and says what the word means. He says it means to gather firebrands, and to take as a poker to gather firebrands.
Now, before he moves on to the meaning of the next word, Murray kind of cobbles a sentence together with what he has so far. But to keep my video orderly, I'm going to move on ahead to the next word he talks about and save his sentence for later in the video.
So, here is the Strong's entry for the word Murray claims he has identified. Ood. Strong's number 181. Now, the first thing you might notice is that, once again, for no apparent reason, Murray adds an aleph to get the word he wants. He notes this himself. I have no idea why Murray seems to think you can just add alephs wherever you want. Second, take a good look at this Strong's entry. It says the word derives from an unused root meaning to rake together, or perhaps a poker. But it gives the actual meaning of this word as a firebrand. But as Murray summarizes what he sees in Strong's, he again cannot seem to understand his own resource. He takes the possible meaning of an unused root and mashes the meaning of the root word together with the meaning of the word itself. So much so that he takes the word in question, which is a noun, meaning simply a firebrand, and turns it into a verb, meaning to gather. Actually, it's worse than that. He mashes up the meaning so much that he takes a noun and turns it into an entire verbal phrase. To rake together as a poker for turning or gathering embers or firebrands.
This is what Murray does. He takes what he sees in Strong's and misunderstands and throws it all into a blender and whips it up until it can mean virtually anything. That's just not how languages work. You can't just read the meaning of a root word right back into the word itself all the time without fail like that, or else we would be spreading butterflies on our toast. If you'd like to learn more about this kind of thing, I would recommend here the book Exegetical Fallacies by D.A. Carson, and take a look at pages 28 through 33, which will tell you about root word fallacies.
Now, going back in the video a bit, let's talk about the translation he gives partway through. He thinks he has identified 4 words here. Ara, Kol, Ya, Ud. A word for lion, so he claims, a word for voice, a shortened form of the covenant name of the Lord, and the word for a firebrand, which Murray keeps saying firebrands, even though the Hebrew term here is not plural. But in any case, we've got lion, voice, Lord, firebrands. But Murray's got to get a sentence out of this, right? Even though it's just a string of nouns with no verbs at all. So he reads it again. This time he says it means, quote, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Messiah, the voice of God. Let thy poker gather these firebrands to thee. Okay, so he went from lion, voice, Lord, firebrands to the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Messiah, the voice of God. Let thy poker gather these firebrands to thee. Boy, if he adds this much to his reading every time he reads it, he'll have a whole novel by the time the video's over.
And then Murray unloads his biggest payload of wacky. And the silly thing is, it really seems like it's at this point coming up that he feels he's at his most impressive as a scholar. When in reality, this is where he most clearly reveals the fact that he doesn't know what he's doing.
He says that the subscript character below the main line on the stone is a vav, and that it is a Masoretic numerical note, saying that there are 6 words in the line. But Murray says there is a problem with that because there are only 5 words in the line.
But wait, Murray's only identified 4 Hebrew words in the line, right? Let's see here. We've got Ara, lion. We've got voice, Yah, firebrands. So where's the 5th word come from?
Well, if you watch him count up the words, you see he counts Ud as 2 words, because according to Murray, it means gather firebrands. That's 2 words, right? And that makes 5 words, right?
For what Murray is saying to be true, the man who etched those letters on the stone would have to have etched the phrase, stood back, looked at it, and then counted up the number of words in a language different from what he was writing in that also, furthermore, did not exist yet. On top of that, the man would have had to have known ahead of time that the people finding the stone would have been contemporary English speakers, and they would have been able to decipher all of this. Look, for that to be true, the man who etched the letters on the stone would have had to have been some kind of bilingual time traveler. Now that I think of it, Murray believes in flying saucers, so maybe he does think the scribe was a bilingual time traveler. Murray next suggests that the scribe, the man who etched the letters in the stone, wanted the reader to take the letter of the Masoretic note, the vav, and insert it back into the text where the caret exists. So let me get this straight. This supposedly brilliant Masoretic scribe uses a system that Murray himself admits was intended to ensure that nothing was left out of the text, and this scribe uses it to indicate to the reader that he has intentionally left something out of the text, and then also that he wants the reader to insert what he left out right back into the text. Well, that makes perfect sense.
As hard as it may be, let's assume that what Murray does here is valid. Before he did this little letter switcheroo, what did he have? He said he had Kol Yah. Guess what this means? It means the voice of the Lord. How do we get the voice of the Lord out of 2 words? Well, this is how. First you have Kol for voice. Then you have Yah for the covenant name of the Lord. Now, when you have a noun followed by a proper noun like this, it is entirely normal in Hebrew to read it as a kind of possessive construct. Additionally, since you are dealing with a particular person, the Lord, it is entirely proper to read the definite article into the phrase. So you have the voice of the Lord, even though you only actually have 2 Hebrew words in this phrase. There are countless examples of this phraseology in Hebrew, but just to throw one at you, you have Hisei David from 2 Samuel 3:10. You only have two Hebrew words, Hisei David, but the phrase is quite properly read, the throne of David.
If you'd like some documentation for some of the particulars of the Hebrew language that I'm talking about right now, I could really send you to just about any intro-level Hebrew textbook, but two resources that I happen to have on hand that I could direct you to. First off, Williams' Hebrew Syntax by Ronald J. Williams. This one happens to be the 3rd edition. If you look on page 7, you'll see kind of a general explanation of what I'm talking about concerning construct chains. But if you look on pages 13 to 18, you'll see more particularly what I'm talking about when it turns to genitive constructs. Now, if you want something with far less linguistics jargon than this book, you could go over to this book, The First Hebrew Primer, which is by Simon Resnikoff and Motzkin. Take a look at chapter 9 for word pairs, and that'll give you pretty much the same information. So, Murray already had voice of the Lord. So, what does he have after this Masoretic mumbo-jumbo he does? Guess what? He has the voice of the Lord. That's right. In this sense, the insertion of the vav makes no difference at all. And right about now, you might be saying, I thought you said you couldn't add letters without changing meanings. You're right, I said that. But I also said that that's true with very few exceptions, and this happens to be one of those exceptions. It's kind of like the word color in English. Now, if you read the word color in a book written by someone in the United States, you're liable to find it spelled this way. But if you're reading a book written by someone in the United Kingdom, then you might find the same word color spelled this way, with the letter U in it. Now, the words are pronounced the same way, the words mean the same thing, it's just that in this part of the world, the word is spelled this way, and in this part of the world, the word is spelled this way. It's just a particular case. You can't just throw the letter U into any old English word and have it not make any difference. It's just this, in this word, this is a particular case. And that's the same sort of thing that we have with the Hebrew word kol. Most of the time, it's spelled with the vav. In the Hebrew Bible, a few times it's spelled without the vav. But they're pronounced the same way, and they mean the same thing. So, why all the fuss?
Well, Murray provides this entry from Strong's. Now, Murray seems to think that if you add the vav back in, you get the word listed in Strong's as 6964, which is the name Koliah. And since, I guess, the entry for the proper name Koliah says that the name means the voice of the Lord, this means to Murray that now, at this point, with the vav inserted, you can use the word of to get the voice of the Lord. Again, this shows that Murray neither understands Strong's nor how Hebrew works. First off, he doesn't understand that he's looking at this entry in Strong's and that this is a proper noun, a name of a man. Furthermore, he doesn't understand that even just with the two words, kol yah, kol without the vav, grammatically in Hebrew, he has the phrase, the voice of the Lord anyway.
Remember how he said the Masoretic note meant that there should be 6 words in this phrase instead of only 5? Well, guess what he says that 6th word is? It was the English word of that he just inserted into his translation. He did it again. So 2 out of the 6 words that Murray says are represented on this stone are English words. So Murray wants us to think that the brilliant Masoretic scholar and scribe who etched these words on this stone etched the words and then counted that there should be 6 words in the phrase, and that 6th word should be an English word, a word in a language that did not exist yet, and on top of that, it should be a word that is grammatically unnecessary in the Hebrew phrase. And this is Murray's big find? I'm at a loss for words at this point. I mean, to me, this is the nail in the coffin. This is the smoking gun. To me, this is the proof that Arnold Murray has no idea what he's doing. I mean, all he seems to have is Strong's Concordance, which he can't seem to read properly, and then some factoids that are less than accurate about the Masorah, and out of that he concocts all this gobbledygook nonsense. I mean, that is it. I'm sorry, but I have no way to understand what he's doing here other than Arnold Murray has no idea how Hebrew actually works. But even if what Murray has said here is true, and even if it's legitimate, even if there is a Phalo-Hebrew that works this way, there is absolutely no reason to think that the man who inscribed the letters on the stone counted 2 contemporary English words in his Hebrew phrase to come up with a number for his Hebrew Masoretic numeric notation. Absolutely no reason. The idea is completely inane, and I think anyone who stops and thinks about it for a couple of seconds will know that. The video goes on a bit longer, but to be honest with you, from my point of view, at this point Murray has blown his own credibility. So I see no reason to continue on with the rest of the content of this video. There's only one more thing I will note.
If you recall, I supplied you with Murray's translation that he offers at the opening portion of this video. He says while he's standing in Tennessee at Bat Creek, he says the words on the stone mean this, quote, "May Yah have mercy," unquote. But when he gets back to his studio in Arkansas, all of a sudden he gives this translation, quote, "The Lion of Judah, the Messiah. May the voice of God be the poker that gathers these firebrands," unquote. So, alright, so I guess like in the car ride from Tennessee to Arkansas, he decided that what used to say "May Yah have mercy" now means "the Lion of Judah, the Messiah, may the voice of God be the poker that gathers these firebrands." Wow, that must have been a honey of a car ride, Chief. I guess he was really drinking his coffee that day or something.
So this is my assessment of Murray's translation work. The title card at the beginning of the video presented this as an example of Murray's linguistic skill. As far as I can tell, Murray fell flat on his face. But I know that as soon as I say that, Murray fans and followers are going to say, "Let's see you do better, man." Well, okay, the first thing I should probably do is establish whether or not what's on the stone is Paleo-Hebrew or not. But that's a little difficult for me to do, for one thing. Paleo-Hebrew is not my forte. I mean, I was trained to be able to read biblical Hebrew and use it in interpretation. I don't really know all that much about Paleo-Hebrew, and furthermore, if you look at a table of Paleo-Hebrew letters, there is a lot of variation that goes on. Well, here, why don't I show you that? You are looking at a table of Paleo-Hebrew characters from the book Textual Criticism of the Hebrew Bible by Emmanuel Tove. But he cites this information as coming from Early History of the Alphabet and Introduction to West Semitic Epigraphy and Paleography by J. Nevaeh. Now, all these characters are samples of how different letters look on various kinds of ancient texts. Some are from calendars, some are from coins, and so forth. Anyway, you can see that while the different shapes resemble each other, they follow certain patterns, they also differ considerably. To make things more difficult, not all the characters on the Bat Creek stone correspond to anything on this chart. So, just to kind of explain what you're seeing, I take right here, these are all the different versions of Paleo-Hebrew alephs that, well, probably not all of them, but this is a sampling of them, and you can see they considerably range. Now, if we're talking about the Vav in particular here, that Murray refers to, that subscripted letter Vav, just to kind of give you an idea, what we're looking at here is Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. So in this column, we see a number of different kinds of Vavs, none of which really resemble what we see as that subscripted character that he is so adamant is a Vav. So, are these really Hebrew letters? I don't really know. Some of them look like they might be, some of them look like they don't. But for fun, let's just say they are. And For even more fun, let's just say again that Arnold Murray is correct about what letters they are. Then let's see what we've got.
Murray gives us these letters: Resh, Kof, Lamed, Yod, He, Vav, Dalet. Now, instead of adding a bunch of alepphs and playing a bunch of games with Masoretic notes that can magically jump all over the text, let's just take the letters as they stand. We've got the Resh and the Kof, and then a space with some kind of dot or caret. Well, seems like the simplest explanation here is that we have a two-letter word and a break. So what does Resh Kof spell? Well, that spells rock, which can be used a few different ways, but generally means only. Now, if you're using Strong's, you can look that up in the Hebrew lexicon as number 7535. So far, so good. What about the rest of the words? Well, if we understand the space and the caret to be a word break, that leaves first the letter lamed, which could be a prefix meaning to or for. Then the rest of the word would be Yehud, which is a secondary form of the name Judah. At least it is in Aramaic. Now you can look that up in Strong's 3061. This would give us a very understandable phrase, Rak le Yehud, which would mean only for Judah, as if the land or the people buried there were to be dedicated to the land of Judah. If you didn't like the Aramaic word, it does look like there's some kind of partial letter on the right edge of the stone. And you might assume that the stone is broken and leaves a letter or two off, and we can see the first little tail of one of those letters there on the stone. If that were the case, you might present the last word as Le Yehudim, adding the letters Yod and Mem, which would mean for the Judeans. So the whole phrase would mean only for the Judeans. And that's pretty much the same thing that we had before. Now, if you disregard the space after the kof, you could divide up the words differently if you wanted to, and you might get a phrase, for instance, like Rak li Hud, which basically means only majesty for me, which would make sense if the person buried with the stone were a chief or something. As for the subscript, well, that could be just about anything, except a notation of how many words are in the phrase, like what Murray claims. That's just ridiculous. Remember, Murray had to count 2 English words to get up to his 6 anyway. I mean, that's just silly. So, what would I guess it would be? Well, first off, if someone forced me to say what Paleo-Hebrew letter it might be, I would say it's a Samek. Now, in the Masoretic text, they used a Samek to mark the end of a unit of lines, kind of like a paragraph break. Now, I'm not sure when exactly they actually started doing that, so I'm not sure if the use of that kind of Samek notation lines up with the supposed time frame we have for this stone. But it could be that, or it could be a signature or a maker's mark, if it's anything at all.
There might be even more possibilities if you understand the characters on the stone as different letters, or if you flip the whole thing over and try to read it that way. But here's my point. You can take the letters that Murray understands to be on the stone, and you can use those letters to come up with 2 or 3 completely plausible phrases without doing any of the mental gymnastics Murray does, without any aleph adding, without any smushing of definitions, without any reading nouns as verbal phrases, without any silly nonsense about Masoretic numeric notations that you have to count 2 English words to total up to 6. You can come up with plausible phrases without any of that. So why does Murray perform these mental gymnastics? These are the only reasons I can think of. Either 1, he has no idea what he's doing, or 2, he wants to appear as though he has exclusive knowledge on the subject, or 3, both these things. Both he knows he has no idea what he's doing, and he wants to look like he has exclusive knowledge. So there you go. As far as I can tell, all Murray has done here is taken an artifact of dubious nature and presented a translation of whatever's on that stone that is so rife with error, and nonsense that it borders on the laughable. As far as I'm concerned, all Murray has done in this video of his is demonstrate that he really has no understanding of how Hebrew works. But let me say again, I don't know everything. If there is a resource out there that presents a form of Hebrew that operates the way Murray says this does, post it on this web zone. Give me a title. I'd be happy to issue a retraction. I'd be happy to put a text bubble right over my face that says that I'm wrong. So, here you go. I'm going to offer you some time to look for a resource that vouches for what Murray has done. Go ahead. Take a few minutes, few moments, look for a resource. Okay, now I'm going to post the legitimate resources that I have been sent. If you see no resources here on the screen, it means I haven't been sent any legitimate resources to look at that vouches for what Murray has done. Now, let's get a little serious. All right, let's get serious for a moment. I think the first thing we need to ask is, what does all this have to do with the proclamation of the gospel? How does it impact the gospel? To be honest with you, I'm not really sure that it does. I don't think it really impacts the proclamation of the gospel, whether or not Hebrew-speaking people made it to the Americas in the time of Christ. Furthermore, I don't think Arnold Murray in this particular video about the Bat Creek stone says anything particularly heretical or contrary to the gospel. So, why bother picking it apart? Well, here's why. So much of Murray's other teachings depend so greatly on his personal claim to scholarship, on his claim that he is dug into the original languages, or as he would say, the original manuscripts, which is a strange thing to say. But so much of what he says is banking on that. So much of what he teaches is drawn from whatever he does with the original languages. And so what we have in this video is Murray tipping his hand for us to kind of show us his process in handling at least Hebrew. And it comes up full of error and inaccuracy. It's like he's playing poker and he's tipped his hand and he doesn't have anything to play. What he does is not consistent with someone who has formally studied the languages. Frankly, to me, it seems more consistent with someone who has been looking things up in Strong's Concordance on his own without any formal training or understanding of how the biblical languages work. And he's just left to come up with his own conclusions and make his own kind of crazy errors. That's my take on what Murray does. Now, Murray does not strike me as someone who's in it for the money. He doesn't strike me as someone who's in it for the fame. I would venture to say that probably he's sincere, and probably he thinks he's sincerely studying the Bible appropriately. But here's the thing. What he does is strange and an error, and the same weird, wacky things we see him doing when he approaches the Bat Creek stone leads him to even stranger and wackier things that he does when he teaches. And so I only can come to two conclusions about why this is. Either he is ignorant, and I don't mean that as an insult, I just mean that he lacks knowledge. Either he is ignorant, but thinks he knows much, or he is knowingly ignorant and is going to great length to appear like he knows something to the general viewer. Either way, that's a problem. Either way, that kind of disqualifies him as a good Bible teacher. Either he doesn't know much, so we shouldn't listen to him, or he is intentionally trying to really kind of deceive people into thinking he knows a lot when he does not. Now, I think the likelihood is that's the first problem, but there might be some of the second problem going on too. In either case, he's a teacher that's best avoided. But if you're out there and you like Murray because you feel like he digs into the original languages, that's a great thing for you to be concerned about. So, go take some classes in the biblical languages. Go take some classes in biblical Hebrew or biblical Greek. Now, I understand that's not possible for everyone. People don't have the time or don't have the money to pay for such classes, and I understand that. What I would try in lieu of that is going to a local pastor who has been through seminary, who has received a Master's of Divinity. If they've received a Master's of Divinity, then it's almost certain that they've received some kind of training in biblical languages. Now, it might be a lot of training, it might be a little training, but if they have a Master's of Divinity, it's almost certain they've gotten something. And so it'd be a place to start. And I can just about guarantee you a pastor would be thrilled if someone walked in to the office and said, "Can you help me understand the Bible better?" Or "Can you help me understand the biblical languages better?" Now, they might be very rusty, or the biblical languages may not have been the focus of their study, and their study might have been decades ago. But they could almost certainly at least get you started or put you in contact with people and resources that could help you. If nothing else, go and pick up for really a reasonable price some of those Introduction to the Biblical Languages textbooks that you can find in just about any Christian bookstore. The one that I highlighted earlier, the First Hebrew Primer, would be a great one to start with. I don't see that one a lot in Christian bookstores, but it's readily available. I got my copy on Amazon.com, and you can too. But keep that passion for the biblical languages going. I just don't think Arnold Murray is someone to pay attention to on that level. And really, when I think about it, I think of what it says in 2 Timothy 2:15, where Paul charges Timothy to be diligent, to show himself approved of God, a workman who need not be ashamed, who accurately handles the word of truth. You know, and that's a charge Paul laid out for Timothy, and I think that's a charge that we as Christians all need to pick up. And quite frankly, what I have seen in this video about the Bat Creek Stone has proved to me that Arnold Murray, at least when it comes to dealing with the biblical languages, is not capable of accurately handling the word of truth. And on that level, we need to be very cautious about his teaching. So, having said that, that brings us to a close for this edition of the Heterodox Paradox. And so until next time, I invite you all, as you keep on walking along with Christ, I invite you to keep on asking, why do I listen to these people?
Oh, wow. Tom spent $1.50 a roll for that wallpaper. We better go now. Join us next time for